pondered life's questions, I wondered. Is Mentos really the best reaction with Diet Coke? Well, today, let's find out. Right, so today we're going to be doing a couple tests based on a few viral videos I've seen recently. So we'll be looking at 3 different tests today. So obviously our first test involves Mentos and Diet Coke, which I'll go into a bit more detail in a minute. Our second test, we're going to have a look at an interesting Martini glass hack, so stick around for that. And then finally, we're going to look at the difference between cheap and expensive corn recipes. So we've got quite a lot planned today. Let's get cracking with our Mentos and Diet Coke. So after my recent test looking at what soda reacts best with Mentos, I thought we have to try the other side of that. What mints react best with Diet Coke? So that's basically what we're going to be testing today. Right, so we've got a test set up here. Obviously what we'll do is we'll drop our different mints into our Diet Coke and then we'll measure exactly how high the geyser goes, if at all. So let's get a baseline to start with. We've got a Diet Coke and we've got Mentos, and we'll drop 2 Mentos in and see what we get to begin with. Right, so in 3, 2, 1... Okay, not bad. So of course our first challenger is going to be Polo, obviously the mint with the hole. So we'll grab 2 of them to put into our Diet Coke here. So just like the Mento, we'll drop them in 3, 2, 1. That wasn't bad, more of a spill than a fountain. Let's move on. Next up, let's try Fruity Mentos. Obviously very similar to our mint counterparts, but different colours and flavours. Got 2 of these orange ones. We'll drop in 3, 2, 1. So again, not quite as good as the original mint Mentos. Let's move on. Our next test is going to be Tic Tacs. We'll get a small handful out because they're only small. So let's try and get these all in at once. So in 3, 2, 1. Okay, not much. Ooh. Slightly delayed there. That's interesting. So now onto the specials round. We'll start off with the Alka-Seltzer. Let's see how well this does in the Diet Coke. So we'll drop 1 tablet in. So in 3, 2, 1. Ooh. That looked promising to start with, but it's kind of a bit disappointing. I definitely think it's more of a complete reaction, but not quite as violent as the Mentos was. For a final special round, someone suggested to me we actually try salt. So we're going to give that a go now, and we'll see how well that reacts. It should react quite well because it's got lots of surface area. So let's see how this works. So in 3, 2, 1. Ooh. The bubbles are much smaller, that's interesting. Right, so Mentos I think still is the best choice. The only real other contender I think we have is salt, and if I come up with a method that we can drop it in and it sinks to the bottom and then it reacts with the Coca-Cola, I think we'll have a really good contender there. So we've got some more experiments to do with the salt, which we'll do another day, but for now, Mentos definitely is the winner. Very cool. Right, so our next test involved these 2 Martini glasses. Let's watch the video before we crack on with that. Right, let's see what this video is saying.
Everyone's getting tricked at the bar. People are losing money, and they're losing a free drink. And I'm going to prove it to you because it's the bar's fault. And all of this liquid.
Okay, so wow.
Look at that. It fits perfectly, every last drop.
So if that video is true, obviously this one should fit into this one quite comfortably. So let's pour that in. Okay, so almost does. Spilled over a little bit, but pretty much all the way there. So we can see the actual physics of what he was saying in the video is true, but you're not actually losing out at the bar. They're not pouring you a short drink. 1, you wouldn't want to drink this full in a Martini glass. It'd spill everywhere. So that's kind of a silly thing to say anyway. And 2, there's a set amount of alcohol in each drink. And so you've got the right amount of alcohol in the drink that you've paid for, and they've factored that into the price and everything. So they wouldn't just, why would you fill up the glass so it spills everywhere? You'd rather just then pour slightly less. It doesn't make any sense, and you're paying appropriate amount for the price of what it is. So ignore that bit of the video. So obviously this isn't magic, but how does it work? Well, it's because of the shape of the glass. If you look at our cone shape here, what we have is 80% of our glass here, up to there, contains the same volume as the last 20%. So that's exactly why we can pour it in there and it fills up almost 2 glasses into the one. So with that being said, let's have a look at a couple more mathematic coincidences. So if I asked you the question, which is longer, the circumference of the glass on the top there, you can see, or the height of the glass, which would you say? Answer now in the comments before I show you. Obviously, since we're doing science, I had to get the lab coat back on. Right, let's wrap this around the top of our circumference because we can see the height of the glass quite easily. And you shall notice, as I come together, this piece of paper is exactly the size of the circumference of our glass on the top. So remember that. Now, I'm going to show you this next to our glass here, and it's quite amazing. So 3, 2, 1. Look at that. Oh, my God. Were you expecting it to be that tall? I certainly wasn't. Because that is insane to me. I don't know why. The circumference of the glass on the top is that long. That's huge. It doesn't look that long when you look at the glass. I'd say it's almost 1.5 glasses tall. It's absolutely massive. That's crazy. So our third and final maths illusion involves a shoe. Now this is not true on everyone, but it's quite common on a lot of people, and it certainly is true on me. So all you need to do to figure out your shoe size is you'll take your shoe that you're going to try and wear, get your forearm out. So as I mentioned before, this is not true for everyone, but you'll see in my case, to see your own shoe size without having to put this on your foot, you can just take the shoe here and place it between your forearm and your hand, and if you look, can you see? That's the same size, roughly the same size. So your shoe size is roughly the same size between your hand and your elbow. That's a rough guesstimate for shoe size. So I've always thought that's quite an interesting little thing. So inspired by the kid who went viral for talking about corn and why he likes it, and the subsequent song that was made, which I've seen all over my FYP. So we're going to be trying 2 different recipes for corn. The first one being a cheap recipe where we just boil it and put butter on it, which is a classic and is very enjoyable. The second one being our expensive recipe, where we'll actually be making a corn gratin by Jacques Pepin. I hope I pronounced that all okay. Which looks absolutely incredible. So completely kind of different, but very similar in terms of their ingredients. So for a cheap recipe, all we're going to do is boil corn on the cob. So let's put this into our pan. And it's important we add a good amount of salt to that water as well. Right, so the water's just started to boil now. Let's add our corn into that and we'll cook it for 5 minutes or so. Right, so as per Jacques' instructions, we need to remove all the corn from our husk here. So let's do that carefully. So our next job is to add them into our food processor. So let's get those there. And I guess now process. Next thing goes 2 large eggs. So there's 1. And that makes 2. Now we're in a couple of teaspoons of flour as well. That should do. We'll do 1 more. Now the recipe calls for half and half, but we'll use single cream. So you want about a cup, which is about that much. We'll season this and then blend it 1 more time. So let's get the salt in and then some pepper as well. And now we'll just puree this until smooth. Right, now we'll get this into our buttered dish here. So pour that in. And finally, let's grate some Parmesan cheese over the top. This is partly what makes this so expensive. You want to put a generous amount, it says on the recipe. So for me, that's quite a lot. So let's put this into the oven for 35 minutes and we'll come back and compare the two. Right, so gratin is looking beautiful. Let's serve it up onto our plate here. We'll get that on nicely. We certainly can't forget to put butter on our corn here, which is the only other ingredient really. So let's get that nice and buttered up. Right, so we've got 2 corns here. We've got corn on the cob for our cheap option, and then we've got a corn gratin for our expensive option. Let's try these both and see which is better. Our cheap option first, our corn on the cob with a bit of butter. It certainly does have the juice. This is very good. Let's move on to our corn gratin. Oh, it smells delicious. Obviously, we've got all the rich flavours of the corn. It's very sweet. And then we've got the Parmesan cheese on top. We've got cream in there. Salt and pepper, obviously, seasoning. Egg. I feel like a big part of enjoying this corn on the cob here is the fact that it's like this crunchy texture. Obviously, there's a time and a place for dishes like this. But I've got to say, in a direct comparison, it is an easy win for me on corn on the cob on our cheap option. Cheap wins! Very cool. Right, well there we go. We pondered life's questions. We've done some tests. We even had corn on the cob. Who says we don't do it all? Make sure you comment what stuff you want to see me try next as I read through all your amazing comments. Thank you so much for all the support. Thank you everyone who subscribes. And yeah, like I said, I post every Monday, Wednesday, Friday longer videos and we post short content all the time. And as always, we'll finish on this. Very cool.